Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and we're continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and we have another unexpected video this Friday because FPGAZumSpass or Robert just cannot stop the flow of progress on the Nintendo 64 core. We have a brand new build that's going to give you better graphics as well as more playable games, but there is going to be a setup guide later in the video because it is a different process than the previous video I did, which is why I'm updating this now. But before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But as this mangled Bowser comes into our review, it does look amazing in its own right, and it is much improved from the previous core I showed you guys, and I will give you some side-by-side examples. But as we get back into the introductory sequence of Super Mario 64 here, the graphics are so much clearer, and a lot of the distortion and pixelation from the previous core is 100% gone in this build. Now obviously, taking a look at what's on screen, this does not look like a retail copy of Super Mario 64 running on real hardware, and that is not what we're expecting at this point in time. But you guys love seeing the update, you want another video, I asked, you requested, so here we are. But look at what the castle here looks like with those black stripes, but no real distortion in anything else. And if we go over to the original capture from the previous core, you're going to see a lot of issues with the polygons and all of this video signal noise here. Between the RSP and the RDP, there was some sort of issue there. Obviously code is in development, but Robert did patch that up to get a better visual look at what's going on. You can see the improvements in real time. This is from the previous core, and that castle is so much more distorted, and there's so much more clipping going on in everything on screen. But when we move back over to the current core, you can see so much of that cleanup. Honestly, this just feels like a broken Nintendo 64 at this point in time. Like if you had tilted your cartridge and got graphical corruption. I have seen my Nintendo 64 do weird things like this, so it's not at all surprising it's doing it here. When the cartridge is tilted, it's not making contact to all the pins. The hardware can do some weird things. But as Horror Show Faceless Mario comes out here, this is so much improved from the previous core. It is night and day, and it is mind-blowing. I love seeing the progress get made in real time, and I know all of you guys do as well. And for those that do want to test the core, wait for that setup guide later in the video because it is a complex process and it does require some new files that I will show you guys how to get and how to manipulate. But as we let the camera pan around Mario here, obviously some of that water is in a place that it shouldn't be, but otherwise all of the movement feels correct on the analog stick. That's one of the most important things when you're recreating a system in FPGA. Not just that it looks and performs well, but that all of the sort of physics and weight to a character translate. And I will say that Mario's controlling exactly as I remember him in an actual game. And as we come around the corner here, Faceless Mario is going to meet his buddy Horror Show Toad, who seems like he had a rough night drinking and is basically missing most of his features. In some weird way, this core is so charming in what it's currently doing. I absolutely love this look. It feels like a haunted Nintendo 64, one of those creepypasta stories from back in the day. But leave me a comment down below next time I test this core, what games do you want to see me test? I did add in some fan requests here, but obviously keep giving me that list so I can find more stuff to check out. But outside of it running slightly slower and the graphical issues being plainly obvious, this is really shaping up to feel like an experience that you can check out today and understand how the development process works. Obviously you're not going to be beating Super Mario 64 anytime soon, but I was actually able to get up to the chain chomp this time. You'll see that there is no ground, there is no texture there. It is such a weird way to play, but it's such an intriguing way to play, and it kind of shows how the hardware works or doesn't work on Nintendo 64 depending on what's going on, and Chain Chomp caught me there because I didn't know where I was running. But again, all of the characters are here. Their sprites are definitely having some issues, but that will get cleaned up in future updates, and that's what I can't wait to see. But being able to run around the first level in Super Mario 64 on a core that everyone thought was probably impossible is just 100% stuff that I love to play around with and see, and I know a lot of you guys do as well. Speaking of improvements, Mario Kart 64 has so many improvements in the graphics as well, as sometimes I think the sound might sound a little bit better. Go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll come back and show you how to set this core up on your MiSTer so you can start testing today. But enjoy. Sounds pretty great to my ears, but if you go over to the main MiSTer Discord and you go to test builds, you're going to see this update. It's going to be at the bottom as of the making of this video. There's going to be a new RBF file, that is the core. There's going to be a new unstable MiSTer main that is required for this operation. And there's also going to be a link to Vampier's website that has an N64-database.txt file that's going to have the checksums of the games available so that the core will boot more of them, because the Nintendo 64 did have some light protection on the cart. I showed you previously how to update to MiSTer main. If you want to see that again, I'll leave a link to the description below. But after you update to unstable main, go into your underscore consoles folder, and you will see here I have the old Nintendo 64 core build from the 13th. And all we're going to do is copy over that N64 underscore CIC.rbf file to the consoles folder. That installs the new core from Robert onto our MiSTer, but we still do have a few more steps because we need to deal with that text file. So if we move over here, we're going to go into the games folder that we created previously in the first video, and we're going to scroll down till we get to Nintendo 64. If you need any help getting the boot.rom onto your system, I will leave a link to my previous video where I showed to do that. I don't want to do it twice in 1 week. If we come over here, we're going to see we have an N64-database.txt file. Now, depending on what website you download it from, what browser you download it from, it might add extra characters. If it's anything other than N64-database.txt, rename the file to make sure it is exactly as you just saw on the screen, or else it will not ingest. From there, you can copy over whatever new games you want to test onto your MiSTer. Go ahead and reboot the MiSTer or turn it on with the SD card reinserted, and the new core will be available to you. And you see here in Earthworm Jim, this is just horrifying in the best way possible. Earthworm Jim kind of looks correct, but this really does feel like the haunted core, because as the cow falls down and the eyes come out of its skull all poppy like that, it is such a weird vibe, but it is so much fun to see this rendering in real time on our MiSTers, because for the longest time nobody thought Nintendo 64 would be possible, but here we are playing a very corrupted version of it, and you know it's only going to get better from here. Robert's an absolutely outstanding developer, and I can't wait to see what the next update brings. And just like the Sega Saturn core, I will continue to update you as we get new cores that have more functionality or better visuals. But another game that you can get into and play today until it freezes, it does seem to hang here and there, is going to be Tom and Jerry. It's really funny that they got a game on the Nintendo 64. I didn't think Tom and Jerry were that popular back in the 90s, but apparently they were. And you will see here that this kind of looks like if they had made a 3D console before the 3DO. It's kind of like the 16-bit looking 3D. It is very strange, it's very unique, but you can get in game and you can experience everything the game has to offer so long as you can play as an invisible character. But again, on the graphical update side, if we put the old core to the right up against the new core on the left in Mario Kart, you can see the vast visual improvements. Of course, we're still racing as a black box. Hopefully characters do start coming into the game in future updates, but it is looking better, and it has only been like 6 days since we talked about the previous core. That is the speed at which Robert seems to be iterating on this. Now, of course, with every video, it might be another 6 months until he has something new to show us. It might be 6 days. We don't know. Everyone needs to be patient, but you will see that the core is improving, and you can help test it today over on the main MiSTer Discord. We're all in there talking about what works, what doesn't work, and kind of cataloging the bugs we see outside of the obvious things on the screen right here. But you can 100% get through a race. Unfortunately, I hit a banana peel, so I came in second. Classic Mario Kart, leading the race the entire time until the last turn. Happens to the best of us, folks. That is the blessing and the curse of Mario Kart. And one game that a lot of people ask me to test is Resident Evil 2. Be aware that on the bigger ROMs on MiSTer, it's going to take like 20-30 seconds for those to load into your RAM. That is totally normal. And I will say that the current result is it does start to boot in with an absolutely weird looking title screen, but as soon as you hear that voice say Resident Evil 2, the game is going to hang. But that means progress is made, because last time I tested this game, it did absolutely nothing. It would not load, so we at least have some title screen here. But the main takeaway is that the core is improving, there's new ways to play games that didn't used to work before, and it is so much fun to see the real-time progress on this. Just because we don't have a floor in Super Mario 64 and Mario seems to have lost his eyes somewhere along the way in his adventures, doesn't mean this isn't spectacular to see in real time. In some ways, I love the core development more than I actually love the finished core, because I just love following along with the progress, sharing it with you guys, and understanding how these things get made. But if you run into any issues setting setting up the core, leave me a comment down below and I will help you as much as I can. If my voice still does sound a little bit nasally, that's because this cold, while almost gone, has been the cold that keeps on giving. Short of that, go test some new Nintendo 64 today. I'll have more MiSTer videos next week. I'll have some fun videos this weekend, but I will see you guys next time. Go play Mario. Bye-bye.